Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we are getting into one of my favorite subjects, Astro, and they just had a big release. We are getting a first look guided tour from Mr. Whiteboard himself, Ben Holmes. Ben, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, it's good to be back.
I'm excited to have you here. This is going to be a good time. I'm noticing now actually that you don't have the whiteboard in the background, which is, are we in a pivot? Or are you distancing yourself from the whiteboard?
Oh, I'm just in the cottage lodge. You can't really bring it with you when you're off in Tuscany. It's tough. It's tough. First world problems.
It is.
I could go grab the whiteboard
on. No, it's totally fine. We'll just make the whole stream into a whiteboard for you. I think is probably the right way to go. So, okay, before we dive too far into anything, let's start by doing an intro for folks who aren't familiar with you and your work. Do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Ben. You may have seen me as B Holmes Dev around Twitter and other places. Kind of clumsy handle, but I got it consistently, so we'll take it. I do a lot of YouTube content around all things web development, and my main focus is Astro. I'm a full-time employee at Astro, over 2 years running. It's crazy to say I work on an open source project, but at a company with a full-time salary. So yeah, it's really exciting to get to do that. Still is. And I'm here to talk about 5.0. I actually wasn't super involved in any of the features we're going to talk about today, but I did a crash course on everything and it was pretty usable. So per usual.
Pretty
Astro
usable
standards.
being pretty high praise for a beta.
Pretty good. Yeah. Better than the 1.0 beta. If anyone was around then, I'm still apologizing to this day. That was like a crash course on everything about how to do a release in open source, and also don't postpone a 1.0. Just get it out the door as fast as possible.
Okay, so you've been with Astro now 2 years. So you've been there since basically day one, right?
Not totally day one. I think I joined 6 months or so in. The project originally started with Matthew, Fred, and Nate Moore. Mm-hmm. And there's the first commit on the repo that just says magicthing.js. And that's all it was called. It was just called Magic Thing. No one had a name for it. And then it became Astro. I was building another framework at the time that was taking 11D, which is still an awesome static site generator, and trying to do something similar with it. But Astro was doing a way more focused vision, saying, let's just make a templating language. Let's make it feel modern. Let's go TypeScript first. Let's build what people have been asking for. Yes, you misspelled slinkity, which is the whole No, that's how you spell it. That is how you spell it. Just making sure. Our SEO was amazing if you could spell it. It's still up.
So good.
Want to go find
so
it.
Good. Yeah. No, I love that. Okay. So, and I remember, I think you came on to talk about Slinkity, right?
I did. Yeah. I came on to talk about it right before I joined Astro, or somewhere around that time. Mm-hmm. So it was very new to me, be anywhere near the developer space. I was just drowning in podcast and YouTube videos through college. These people are cool, but I'm just going to do my regular dev job and just sit on the sidelines. And then all at once, working on Astro, just rushed into getting involved with everyone.
Absolutely.
And everyone's really friendly.
Okay, so you mentioned that Astro was kind of doing what you wanted to do with Slinkity, but at a level that you felt like was worth pursuing. So let's talk a little bit just at a high level for folks who maybe aren't familiar. What is Astro? Why would somebody reach for Astro?
Yeah, and it's the same tagline since day one, just with a lot more features. And that's Astro's the framework for content sites. So that can mean your portfolio. That can mean the marketing page for a very large industry. These days, Bloomberg, Porsche, and a few others have used Astro to build their landing pages and splash pages for new announcements. But we're also good at, stretching content to having like thousands of posts. Think blogs, think entire news outlets like Bloomberg, think documentation. We actually have a separate framework called Starlight that applies Astro in a focused way just for documentation. So we've been taking that built for content sites and finding all the use cases the community wants and just really tightening down, like, how can we make Markdown really good? How can we make docs really good? Now we're expanding, saying, how can we make CMS fetching really good? All of the things that people are trying. Dynamic rendering with server rendering and all of that stuff. That's improved in 5.0. So just taking the vision of content sites and just stretching it as much as it makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's been, it's no secret that I'm a huge Astro fan. I've been using it for everything, teaching people about it. I've got workshops and courses and all sorts of stuff happening with it because I think it's great. And so it's been really fun to watch how at the beginning, it sort of felt like Astro had firmly planted this flag that said, we're here to handle your content. And that sort of inherently planted the seed of, all right, so this is for like a marketing site, it's for a blog, but I wouldn't really use it if I have too much dynamic stuff, too much user input, et cetera, et cetera. But then steadily through the course of each release, it feels like you've been tearing down those barriers where, we've got features now to handle user input. We've got features to handle, we've always had interactivity through the client islands, but it feels like they're getting even more advanced through time. So when you say it's a content site, like, where are you starting to draw the line now for Astro?
Yeah, we're just pushing it steadily forwards, but being very careful to keep that vision instead of saying, you know what, we're the framework for every website ever, and you should just use it for everything. Once you do that, you really lose focus on what you're good at, and it starts feeling like it's a master of none. So we're trying to be really careful with that, going incremental with it. But yeah, I would say the line is definitely moved forward on like the interactivity, server-side stuff. Actions was the feature that I built for the past few months and headed up with the community. And that is a way to build backend endpoints in a really friendly way. No more like writing response.json and trying to parse it out, actually building something a lot like RPCs, but with even more opinions, even more helpers on top for errors, etc. So that if you want to have a blog that also has a newsletter submit, that also has a like button that's persisted in Redis. That's a flow that I built out. It was really nice to use. If you're adding those extra bits, it is a lot easier to do. Another one is authentication. Up until now, it's been, a static site generator for a lot of people. But sometimes you have internal documentation that needs a middleware, that needs authentication, that needs checking cookies and storing that in SQLite or somewhere else. So we needed to think, okay, even for content, you need server rendering, you need some place to store backend data. You probably need to have some sort of backend interactivity if you're doing post form submissions, etc. So let's keep building that piece so you don't feel limited by what Astro can do. But it's still the use cases that you're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on that point, we don't necessarily need to dig deep into this, but this is I think a reasonable question to ask, which is, will Astro ever try to seriously compete with WordPress? Or do you consider it to already be a serious competitor to WordPress?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the audience that you're speaking to. Because if I'm talking to a bunch of devs that hate using WordPress because it's PHP and old school plugins, then Astro's a serious competitor today. Because you can use JSX, you can use all the modern tools. You can also use Content Layer, which we'll be trying out today, to fetch from a headless WordPress backend, which is really nice if you want to manage content in one place, but actually style and theme your website with modern tooling. So all of that is available to you. But if you're like a WordPress agency that is mostly working with designers and copywriters and you don't have a dev team, Astro still requires some sort of hands-on approach. You're still using your terminal to create Astro and create a new project. So it is developer focused, but if you're in that audience and you're also looking at headless options, then yes, Astro is definitely what you want to try out. And plugging into WordPress engine, again, to have that headless experience, keep your WordPress, but use a modern front end, that's something that we can do.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the specifics of the release this week, which was Astro 5 beta.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to try out actions. Those went stable in 4 point something, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because I wanted my own week on Twitter. So I made sure that was launched first. Then 5.0 can
Good.
come later. You know, it's
Good,
whatever.
good. Yeah, that's the right way to do it, right? Is to
Yeah.
make sure you just plant a little flag and say, no, this is mine. Okay, so let's talk about what's in 5.0 then. So you mentioned the content layer, and so at a high level, you made it sound like that's letting me hook into things like WordPress, or I think I saw some announcements about different CMSs. Like I'm going to try to remember names and get them wrong, so I'm just not. I saw one for Cloudinary a minute ago. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So content layer is expanding on what some Astro users might know, which is content collections.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we launched over a year ago at this point. And it was a very focused tool just for working with Git-based content. So
Mm-hmm.
Markdown, MDX, JSON files, all of those could be fed through content collections. You could check the front matter to make sure every post has a title, every post has a description, and build the site really efficiently. And that's what underpins like our documentation tool. So if you're working with Markdown files, it's really easy. But obviously, Markdown only goes so far. If you're working with copywriters, they're not editing a Markdown file. They're not cool enough. So they're going to Sanity or WordPress or somewhere else, and they're writing their content over there. So we need some way to pull down what they're doing, pull it in the Astro project, and handle all of the pieces that you would want on top. So you can today just like fetch from WordPress in an Astro component, await fetch, WordPress API, work with the data. But you have a lot of issues with caching, for example. Like if I'm in the dev server, every time I save, it's going to fetch WordPress again. That's not going to work. I'm going to get rate limited or some other problem. I need a way to deal with that. And also on every build, you would need to refetch WordPress, rebuild the whole universe. Again, not really something you want. So we wanted something that makes it easy to fetch from all those places, but has a layer on top for caching, and also a layer on top to like reference related content. And that's something we're going to show off a little bit today too, if we have time.
Yes.
So it's taking like a basic fetch call, it's adding types on top, it's adding caching on top, and it's not doing it in a complicated way. There's no like GraphQL layer in meticulously choosing objects. It's just a function. You call it, returns an array, and you use it. So that's really what content layer is all about. Fetch from anywhere, cache it, work with it.
You know, and this is one of those things that it feels like this is a deceptively complicated problem to solve, because everybody wants this. We want to be able to just say, I want to use my framework and I want to load in my content from wherever that content lives, and I don't care, but I want it to be easy to work with.
Yeah.
And every time we've seen somebody build a solution for this, it ends up feeling a little overwrought. I think this was the downfall of Gatsby, for example, is that Gatsby went all in on GraphQL. Everything became a GraphQL plugin. And if you were into that, it made it really simple once you finally got everything in. But loading data into a Gatsby GraphQL layer was an absolute nightmare. And we haven't really seen an approach that doesn't feel that cumbersome. And what I think a lot of meta frameworks have taken is the approach of saying, well, like, you're a dev, figure it out. And so we see userland tools, like everybody's reaching for Tanstack Query. They're reaching for, something like a Prisma or another like kind of ORM tool to wrap around whatever their database, or in the case of Tanstack Query, like reach around the API layer for whatever third-party tool they're using to try to get these benefits you're talking about of caching and so on and so forth. But it still feels very userland, and it still feels very bespoke.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, one of the things that I struggle with the most when I'm working on different projects, is that each project, when they take this sort of userland approach to things, you don't get the benefits of working with a framework, right? Like, this is why people like Laravel. This is why people like Rails. It's why people like Angular. When you step into one of those projects, it looks exactly the same every time. Like, they all are structured the same way. And so that was, I think, the initial appeal of Gatsby, is it was going to give you that consistency. You know where data comes from. You know how the plugin system works. It was just too much work, right? So do you think that Astro is going to be able to provide that? Do you think you've kind of threaded that needle?
Yeah, and it's a very, delicate topic because there's definitely prior art of solutions that felt over-engineered, that didn't feel easy to use. So some are skeptical, like, okay, content layer to wrapper around this fetch call. What's going to happen if I install the Notion API loader, then it goes out of date with the Notion fetch API and I have to fork it or something? That's
Right.
always going to be an issue. There's only so
Sure.
much that you can do. But the best you can do is make an API that's simple, documented, something you could confidently use yourself, no tooling on top or working with just a get and a set function in a store. That is all content loaders are. And they return an array of data. There's no GraphQL or any learning curve on top. So we recognize the cons that can come with wrappers. And the best way to do it is just make sure it's easy to use, make sure it just uses standards as much as possible. So in order to make sure we thread the needle, those are two design considerations that are part of it. And I totally agree with you on the framework not doing enough for you versus doing too much. That's been a kind of push and pull because the comparable option is Next.js, which is very much on the other side of everything's an integration, everything is userland. And it's led to a beautiful collection of libraries and solutions that no one would have thought of before. But it also, an analogy I gave was kind of like a Dora the Explorer episode where she's like, and you want to use Tanstack query, and you're supposed to call in response that. But if you don't know off the bat, you're supposed to use Tanstack query with Next.js, you're sitting there like, just tell me the answer. We've been asking this question for 3 or 4 years. Why isn't this built in? And it's a design consideration. It really, depends on how you want to build things. And Astro decided we're going to be a focus tool for content sites. We're not going to be a general purpose framework. So it makes sense to be patient, wait for the community to build things. And then when it's shouting us in the face, we'll try to build something in. Like building actions, we waited for every framework to play their cards on how form data should be sent and how JSON should be sent. Took the best parts of that and built our own thing. Content layer, it definitely worked out the same way. We waited for the community to fetch things in every way to Sunday. We looked at Gatsby. We actually have Matt Kane on our team that formerly did work on the Gatsby project. So we had a lot of perspective coming in. And then we went ahead and built that solution because people asked for over a year. It was obvious we had to do this. We didn't do it too early.
Yeah, I think that slow to act can be frustrating for folks because I know that there was rumblings of a content layer at the very beginning of content collections. Everybody's like, well, why don't you just make this work for everything? I think I was one of those people who was like in the Astro Discord being like, come on, give it to me now. And so, but I do appreciate it because standardizing early can cause such a pain later on because then you have to remove features and it's so much easier to add than to remove features from a framework. And as somebody who has felt the pain of having to maintain frameworks that have, we added a feature and one person uses it, so we can't break it. So we'll just continue maintaining that forever as an alternative code path.
Yeah. And it's been surprising to people. Like I just took this website that was on Astro 1.5 and I bumped it to Astro 5, just YOLO, upgrade everything. And it worked. I didn't do anything.
Very cool.
It was just fine. Of course, it gets harder and harder the more you go. We're running into that now with a couple ways to import Zod and other corners where I'm like, I wish it didn't work that way. But the best you can do there is deprecate slowly, do it incrementally, do majors every 6 months, not every 2 years, so that when it's a break, it's a small break. Just choose those healthy choices to make sure if you really do need to break an old pattern, it's doable. And don't even add a new pattern until you're certain you need it, because otherwise, you got the feature 2 people use.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about content layer. What else is new in the 5 beta?
Yeah, so content layer is the big one. We also have environment variable checking. It doesn't sound glamorous, but there is a lot of nuance to checking environment variables. Like, will this be used on the client? Yes or no? Is it secret and needs to be encoded, or is it something public that you can just slap in the build directly? All of those are things you can configure. We also let you validate if it's a string or a number or a Boolean and auto parse it.
Ooh.
It'll also fail the build and show you exactly what environment variables to add, so you don't need an env example anymore. It's just there in the config. So that's great.
Like, I love that you played this down as like, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. No, this is a huge deal. This is, I think, like environment variable management on any team of more than like 3 people has got to be one of the most painful things that I've ever dealt with. And every company I've ever worked at, like when I went to IBM, I remember one of my first experiences there. I walked into the office and I said, okay, I need to get the local dev environment set up. Somebody copy pasted a 150 line .env file to me. And it was like every secret in the company, just plain text in my Slack, just thrown in there. Like, yeah, just copy that into your own environment. And I was like, this feels bad. Like, there's got to be a better way to manage this. But then we start reaching for ways to manage it, and it ends up being, you know, it's a lot, right? And you don't know which ones you need, which ones are just there because we used it years ago and it's not used anymore. Like, those little checks, those little quality of life improvements that are like, fire up this code and it says, here's your list of actually used environment variables. Oh my goodness, that feels like a huge, huge change.
Yeah, and we do have required and optional as well. So yeah, if there's anything that you don't know about, I know it's just everything you could want. It took a surprisingly long time to like build out the whole feature. Shout out to Florian, a new core member. Actually, he's been a maintainer building amazing things for a long time, but he led the feature beginning to end.
Very
and
cool.
It turned out really good.
Love that. Anything else we want to talk through before we start diving into some code?
I don't think so. Yeah,
all right,
we can feel it out.
Let's do it then. Let me drop us over into this view, and I'm gonna turn on this banner, and actually, before I talk about Ben, just look at his face and then pretend he's not there yet. This episode, like every episode, is being live captioned. We have Diane here from White Coat Captioning. Thank you, Diane. That's made possible through the support of Netlify, who's been sponsoring the show for going on 5 years now. Thank you very much, Netlify. And we are also doing a little pair programming today using Tuple. So Ben has control over my screen, can send us links, can draw on it, do all sorts of fun stuff, which is going to make our lives a lot easier as we go on. If I get confused, he can just jump in and fix it for me, which is pretty nice. So thank you, Tuple, for sponsoring the show. We're talking to Ben. Get over there, give Ben a follow on whatever platform, be Holmes Dev everywhere. And we are talking about the Astro 5 beta, which was released a couple days back. So make sure you go and check that out. So this is as much as I know. So Ben, if I wanna jump in and get started here, what should my first step be?
Yeah, we have a new set of 5.0 beta docs that show you how to create a new 5.0 project. So I believe it's in the blog post somewhere. I can also just send you a link directly to the docs.
All right, let me just hop in right here. Look at this. Look at this. That is beautiful.
Yeah, there we go. So that line right there will go ahead and create a new Astro project. You can also use PNPM if you want to do it faster, but whatever you want.
I've never actually used PNPM.
Wow, really?
It's never been, I don't know, it's just never come up for me.
It's the only thing I've used since doing open source. It just became a common practice in like the Vite community. I don't know.
All right, so let's get in here. We'll do one of these, and I'm gonna, actually, I'll let it make the directory for me. So we're gonna npm create Astro and ref next, and that I assume is going to the next branch.
Yeah, it actually installs the Next.js app. Really surprising. Yeah, big pivot.
Huge twist. Okay, so we're gonna put this in Astro 5 beta, and then do you want me to use the sample files or go empty or?
It really doesn't matter. We're gonna be working with a lot of data, not a lot of styling. So.
All right, let's rock empty then.
Let's do it.
TypeScript, I'm making assumptions.
Sure.
I guess.
I just hit enter, 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 and
that's usually what I do. And then I realized that I had muscle memory going, and I was like, I should probably ask in case Ben needs me to like do certain things here.
Fair.
All right, so this gets us npm installed. Let me open up this project. Astro 5 beta. And then I'll close this one. Apparently my VS Code updated. And it's so tiny. What happened? Let me change my profile because this is bad.
Oh, no.
Video.
Oh, there's profiles.
Oh, yeah, they're great. I did the thing wrong, though. Profile. Here. Okay, there we go. This is the one that's actually legible. So inside, I have the standard that I would expect from a empty Astro site, which is an index page. And then over here, barely any dependencies, but I can see that we're at the Astro 5 beta.1.
Sounds good. Yep, that's all you get in an Astro project. And one other thing before we get started, if you can uninstall this guy for me, it looks like we were getting some like auto formatting issues earlier. I was debugging with the team. Beta software, right?
Indeed.
Fix is going out soon. Downstream issues.
Drop that one. Yeah, that's gone.
Cool.
Okay, and then just fire it up.
Fire it up.
All right, let's do it. We're rocking. I'm going out to here and 432. No, not the login page, just a regular page. Okay. So let me make this left half. We'll make this right half, and we can be rocking. So this all looks great. I see we've got types generated. I do really like that your CLI is helpful. Things like this are always just so nice. Like, hey, did it break? Go here.
Yes.
Let's see. I just realized that got a lot of chat going. Just double checking.
Oh, yeah.
Any good questions? The old PNPM evangelism strike force. Got a little love for tuple. Let's see. Somebody standing for yarn.
You're lucky I'm not a bun evangelist, because this would get bad. Not yet.
Yes. Okay, great. So let's. Feels good to remove dependencies. Well, when the dependencies aren't needed.
That's a type checker. We'll get it working. Don't worry about that.
All right. So yes, we are good. All right, we're ready. We're ready to rock. Let's make this happen.
Okay. So I'm gonna drop us right into a little example here. I was playing with like, what's a cool way to showcase content layer and a bunch of APIs at once, and I was thinking maybe we build like an announcements page that also links to a bunch of YouTube videos that we want to showcase or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So in order to build that, we might want like some Markdown files for the announcements and pulling YouTube videos from the YouTube API to try out content loading from another source.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's start with the easy one, which of course is Markdown. So we can see how you do that with the new content layer and any changes there might be if you're an Astro user. So to do that, you can make a file inside of source content/config.ts.
Content/config.ts.
Yes.
All right.
And in here, we're going to make a new collection. So I expect all the auto imports to just work. So we can try doing like announcements as a collection name.
Is it called config? Or do you define them outside of this, don't you? Announcements. And that's define collection, right?
Define collection. There it is.
Okay.
And
it's just a little bit wider.
No problem. So this accepts a schema as it always has. And a schema defines like what front matter stuff is going to be in a Markdown file, for example, or it could be the fields that come from like a CMS. So this would be an object. And let's say every announcement has a title, and we'll set up videos later. We'll just start with the title for now, maybe.
Okay.
And the second thing, this is going to be a new one. This is a loader is what we're going to add. So alongside schema, you can also add a loader.
Got it.
And we have a few built-in ones for globbing stuff. So before, you had to specifically make a directory that was inside of content that had like a top level structure. So if you had blog posts, it's got to be content/blog. All the blog posts go in there. You couldn't have nested folders. You couldn't get fancy. You couldn't put them in like a Git repo somewhere. Had to be there. We have now opened it up so you can glob anywhere on the file system, really. So now you can call glob, and this will be another magic import that comes from loaders. Yes. So you can call glob, and this is an object that takes in a base, which is like the path. So you could say like source/announcements if we want to put them there. They could go anywhere though.
Wait, how would I do this?
Oh, it'll be like root relative. So if you just do like,
okay.
Yeah, if you do that, that should work.
Okay.
And then the pattern would be like star.md or star if you wanted to allow nested. It's a,
Yeah, right. Good old glob.
Good old glob. It's a lot like vglob or any of those tools. And that's all you need, really. The last thing will be, though, well, I just lied, didn't I? So export const collections, and that's an object that includes announcements.
And that is going to be an object that includes announcements.
Yeah.
Okay. So this builds out our collections, and that's the entirety of the file. So this is the default behavior of content collections that we all remember, which is like before we would have called it announcements, and it would have looked for a folder called announcements. This is doing exactly the same thing. We just get to put it wherever we want now.
That's the difference, yeah.
Okay.
And there's also a file loader as well. So if you had like, I think we set it up where if you had a set of authors, every author should be a separate JSON file or separate YAML file. But now you can have one JSON file and you can reference a whole array of stuff in there. So you could also say file authors.json, and it'll just walk through the whole file and make a bunch of entries out of it. So that's a nice little addition if you were ever asking for that.
Yeah. And clarification, the Z is, you were just importing Zod correctly or directly, right?
Yes, exactly.
Good.
Yeah. It's nothing fancy. It's just Zod.
All right. So we have our content collection. I have created a folder for our announcements at the spot that we are globbing.
Cool.
So now I can just create an announcement.
Yeah, sure.
Did you have a particular angle you wanted to go with on these?
No, my test data is garbage. So let's come up with something together. Let's do it.
Okay. What's something that we both like? Well, actually, why don't we could do whiteboard announcements.
Yes.
Good. Like I imagine you've got a list of good models and probably spend a lot of time in YouTube watching whiteboard reviews.
I have one whiteboard bookmarked on Amazon, and I think, did I take it down? Because I migrated my website. Oh, it's down. I used to have vholmes.dev/whiteboard, and it linked to the Amazon page.
That's
no
very
affiliate.
funny.
Anyways,
very funny.
Yeah, I guess we could say, new whiteboard just dropped. Now widescreen, because I only have a portrait whiteboard. That would be huge.
Okay, so widescreen, and we know we need. You know what the feature is that I would kill for is autocomplete on the Markdown itself. Now that we have a schema for it, I know that is. Wait, you have that?
I don't think it works with content layer, but if you're using content collections, we have that now.
Oh my goodness, I want that real bad.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Whiteboard now in widescreen.
Love it.
Okay, so that's one.
Yes.
Let me do like one more here.
Sure, why not?
And we'll call this one, how do I rename? Just double click, right? There we go.
Yeah.
And this one we'll do touch screen.
Oh my God. Technology's progressing at a rapid rate. That's crazy.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, so now we've got some announcements, and we can go ahead and render these. And I was thinking this is a good way to show off our new server-side rendering setup. You don't have to do this, but
Yeah, let's
if you
do it.
wanted to do like, incremental rendering, ISR headers, all that magic, those work. I've been playing with this recently. So yeah, if you wanted to do that, you can make like bracket whiteboard or bracket ID actually, because we'll just be like rendering out to an ID. So something like that.
All right.
.astro. And in here, this is going to be a server rendered page that fetches an announcement instead of having to do like get static paths and all that stuff. So yeah, you can do that. And I think it's pre-render instead of rendered.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Now, does this... I think I read somewhere, and this may be incorrect, that you've combined like hybrid and static mode, or like it's just always in hybrid mode because it's static by default, and you can just export the pre-render constant. Is that true, or is that future?
That's right now. Yep.
The future
it's
is
the whole
now,
reason
everyone.
we're doing this, actually. Wanted to show off. You can just turn off pre-rendering, and you don't need to play with outputs or adapters until you deploy.
So good.
There you go. And yeah, to fetch an announcement, you can... Oh, am I allowed to type? Is that like a thing I can do?
Oh, yeah. Click in.
Okay. Let's click in. Oh, enable keyboard. Yes. Very cool. Okay. So
right,
I was
Ben's
just
in charge.
gonna...
None of this is my fault.
You don't have Vim motions, but I'll make do. So you do this. And this is going to be a content API. Okay, we got a little delay on
it does get a little weird because I'm like streaming 5 different directions, so the network struggles a bit.
Yeah, if you don't mind auto importing that for
me. You got it. You got it. Let me take over. This comes from Astro content.
Yep. And that's just plucking off the parameter. Oh, and that should be params.id, I guess.
Oh, right, because we called it ID and not announcement.
Yes. And this is a cool little thing you can do. If you want to say, if not announcement, you can return this little guy right here. Return astro.rewrite 404.
Ooh,
and that will
render
a 404 page if you have one. So if you want to go make like a 404.astro, that would probably help because I think you'd get in like an infinite rewrite loop because it's a dynamic route.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Okay. So we make a new file 404.astro, and this one
busted.
This we'll make it actually valid HTML, I guess.
Love that. Okay. And I saw this error and I reported it to the team. Restart your dev server. It should not be throwing that error because you are allowed to do this.
Oh, there we go. Now it's doing the thing.
Now it is busted. But if it's one of those slugs like whiteboard dash widescreen, that should work.
Okay, so now I go to whiteboard, spell it right, widescreen.
And we got a blank canvas.
Which is what we would expect because we haven't output anything yet.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so now we have our announcement. You can, of course, get the title straight away. So if you want to do like announcement.data.title, that should have the title and it's all type safe. Woo.
Hey, and then what was the other one? It was like touch screen.
I think so.
There we go. Yeah, so they're working.
They're working. Yes. And if you want to render to post content, you can call the render function. This is slightly changed from the old one. So if you say await render, render is now going to be an imported function. It's no longer attached.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we're going to await render, and that comes in from content, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like that?
That's it. And it'll return a content component, the same as the old one.
Okay. And then I just drop that right here.
Drop it right there.
If I can spell it right, there we go. All
And
right.
now, oh, I know why that is.
That
It's
broke
because
we
you don't have a layout or anything,
Yeah.
so it's literally just not encoding things.
Yeah, so we could grab
We can grab these things. Yeah, the char
could-
set UTF-8 is what you need. So the cool thing about Astro though is it's just an HTML file, so like it's kind of do whatever.
kind of is what it is, right?
It is what it is.
Okay. So now we've got content collections rendering, and that is
We got
pretty
content collections.
dang neat. And I can go back between the two and reload it because I was hitting cached page, but look at us go.
Yeah.
Okay. So that feels good. Feels like what we were doing with content collections before. I like this feels better, I think, than
you think so?
having the dot render. Yeah, because it was sort of it was like a magic thing, right? So instead, knowing that I'm importing a render function and wrapping that, I think it feels correct. So let's go for. I want to do something weird. I want to get something that's not Markdown into Astro.
Let's do weird. Let's
Yeah.
do weird. So I'm thinking full YouTube API loader that actually pulls in some videos that
Yes, please.
showcase. I don't have any widescreen whiteboard videos, but
I guarantee you we can find. I
have a. I was gonna pull from his. Actually, wait a minute, because I was gonna say we're gonna pull from a YouTube playlist, but I can add whatever you find to this playlist, and we'll be good.
Widescreen. Yeah, here we go. Nano clean. Perfect.
Yes. Let's do it.
Why not? So this one needs to go into the list. Let's see. I'll put it in the private chat here.
Okay.
And then we need a touchscreen whiteboard.
Oh my god. Wasn't supposed to go like this. I gotta go make a playlist now. 1 second.
I'm here to
I love
complicate
it.
your life.
Yes.
Here we go. There we go. This is not a TV. You're right. It's a whiteboard.
This is not a TV. Okay. All right.
Okay, so before we dive in, there's actually I think a good question that's worth answering here.
Okay.
Which is, what's the advantage of doing it this way with get entry versus just creating the markdown as a page in Pages?
Gotcha. Yeah. So one of them's definitely going to be the checking. So if you want to have title, description, etc., this is checking that those all work and they have the same schema. Another one is going to be like if the markdown's coming from somewhere else, you don't want it in Pages. You want it coming from a separate repo that you could fetch from. Some people have asked for that. Also, putting it outside of source, you could put it there as well. So a little more flexibility on where it goes. But yeah, otherwise, like if you don't care about front matter and you don't care about where the content is, you can still put it in Pages and expect it to work. But it is kind of nice to have it all to work with, checking all the types instead of having the weird like layout front matter prop and magically passing front matter upwards to a layout. It's more explicitly like we're writing an HTML document and we're rendering it ourselves. So at least to me, it's also kind of a developer experience win, but we know people love their markdown in Pages. So that's still a thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it still works. Like,
yes. I think our blog example does this.
we can just hit. There we go.
There it is.
So we still have access to this to the markdown, but for me at least, the major advantage has been the type safety of it. Like I know what's in here, right? Like I have details, I know where it comes from, and when I get into the announcement .data, it just shows me what's available in there, and I don't have to go look at it. The other major thing for me has been turning on the strict mode for these.
Oh yeah.
Where I will like do this, because a major problem that I've run into in every markdown blog or docs or anything is that front matter sort of becomes this like nightmarish outgrowth of like everybody's weird ideas over the years. And we have things like somebody created categories once. We never actually got around to adding categories to everything, so we don't actually use them, but they're still there in some of the
They're
docs,
still
and you're not
there.
sure if you need to use them or not. So people start copy pasting them in anyways, and then you never clean it up, right? And so having this strict mode on means we know what's allowed, and we throw if you add stuff that's not allowed, and that way we keep the front matter to just what's actually being used. And I think to me, that's worth the price of admission.
Yeah. It's kind of like people who comment out code all over a repository. Like, I might need this in the future. Like,
Right.
You have commit history.
Oh, we don't
know
even
what
comment
people
it out,
did.
Ben. We just copy paste the function and rename it.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Like config old.
Configurant and commit. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So I did. Let's see. We've got a couple YouTube videos that are gonna be attached to our whiteboard setup, I hope.
Yes.
So how do we get these? How do we actually get these in?
Yeah, let me show you what to do. So first, as you might imagine, we probably want like a API key to talk to YouTube. And obviously that's a reason to show off environment variables. So
Indeed it is.
I will very securely send these in a chat in plain text. And if you want to add those off screen, that'd be cool. So we talked about environment management. This will check them, but sending environments to your friends, I will say, if you've ever used Doppler, it's this amazing CLI tool that lets you like log in and pull environment variables without having to like send them around or store them somewhere. I recommend that whenever you're working on team projects, because you can also like say Doppler set up staging, and now you're connected to all the staging environment variables. Doppler set up production. And
That's
it's so
that's
nice.
slick.
Not sponsored, but
Not
it's great. Yet.
Okay. Did you send these to me in the chat?
Yeah, one moment actually. Go ahead and do this. Copy that, and I'll send it slightly securely here. It's one-time secret.
Oh, where is this going to open? I hope this opens in the right window.
Oh no.
It's fine. Okay, we're fine. We're in the right
Okay,
place.
good.
Okay, so I am off screen, and I'm still creating a .env, right?
Yep. Put them in there.
Okay, I have created a .env, and then just for the sake of making this easy for me later, I'm putting both of the .env keys into my clipboard. All right, so closing this because I have it copied. Good, and then pulling this back over, and you can see we've got the .env here, and we have access to two secrets now, these two.
Yes, perfect. I thought you were just about to paste the values. Like, wait. Okay, so
It wouldn't be the first time.
Same here. Okay, if we want to set this up in a nice way so that anyone could clone this project later, you can go to the astro.config file. Yeah,
Okay.
the YouTube chat, no.
All right, so astro.config.
Yes. And there's a new option in here called env. So if you call env and then make a schema object inside of here, we can define what sort of environment variables are allowed.
Like this?
Yeah. So there's env schema and then these keys.
Oh,
but
got you. So
yes,
we'll
that's what we're gonna do.
What is happening right now? Env schema, and then I think I was hitting Command X instead of Command Z, so I ate all of my lines of code there. And then we have, I think I broke. Yeah, I did. So it was
That's
YouTube.
fine. YouTube API key. Yeah.
Key and YouTube API secret, right?
I think we've got playlist ID because I was going to pull
Playlist
down from
ID.
a specific YouTube playlist. We can make
Got
a
it.
different one, but this will just pull my videos to shamelessly plug them, and
Okay.
then we'll work from there. So now you can define some information about these. So if you call env field, that's the name of it, and it should have a magic import here. Yes. And you could say dot string on the end of that. So this is kind of like a, oh, not without, yes.
Got it.
And inside of there, you can pass some information about the visibility. So,
okay.
Yeah, this takes a little object.
Takes a little object.
And it has those two important things. So you got the access level, which is going to be secret or public. Secret keys are just going to be encoded as like process env, and public would actually like hot replace the environment variable into your build, which is the default for like client stuff. And then the context is exactly that. So
I just auto completed my way through that. Did it know that it had to be server because we set access to secret?
I think so. Yeah.
That's cool. That's
cool.
very cool. So then if I set it then to access public and I go to do my context,
yeah,
then it
that
lets
could be
me
used
choose client or server. That's cool. That's very cool. But because of, I guess this one doesn't really matter because a playlist ID is a public thing, but we could just make it secret anyways, right?
Yeah, you can do whichever.
All right, we'll make it secret. Keep it secret, keep it safe. It goes on the server. Okay. That's kind of I like this. Schema for .env is already kind of making me happy here.
Yes. The nice part, though, is going to be importing these. So it's like not on meta-env. It is not.
Oh, interesting.
So watch this. Okay. Just type YouTube API key right now. And hopefully, yes, there they are. And those will be type string.
Go.
And you can just use them.
Oh, it's beautiful. And now we don't have to do like TypeScript, like expect error. We don't have to cast as thing.
Exactly. It's great.
I'm very happy right now. That is wonderful. Somebody asked me to keep it public to show the difference. So yeah,
why not?
Let's make it public so we can see the difference.
Yeah. You'd probably have to like open your dist folder to like see the difference, but as a user, they come from Astro server, same way.
Got it. So there's no real difference in like the YouTube
yes.
playlist ID. So this one shows as being a string. This one shows as being a string. So functionally, they're not the same. Now, one thing that would be interesting is if we set this to like context of client, does that mean that when if I try to use this in like my public template or something, is it going to let me? And it'll like throw an error if I try to use a server one?
Right, exactly. That's what it'll check on.
Interesting. Very, very cool. Okay, all right, I'm following. So we've got our environment variables. We've got type safe environment variables. Yes. And now we should be able to import from YouTube, right?
Totally. So writing like a YouTube API that parses all of YouTube's crazy garbage takes time. So I went ahead and wrote that sort of off camera, and I'll see if I can add it in. Oh God, I'm trying to do it with the tuple. Let's see. So if I do this, yes. Okay, that's typing. Cool.
And then
I have so much power.
I think you can, look at that. Shared copy paste. I love it.
Boom. Look at that.
Okay, so let me take over again, and I want to just look at this.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's walk through it.
Oh, yeah, I see why you copy pasted this.
There's a bit of stuff to make sure you fetch it, but I could put this on NPM so you could use it. I could totally do that.
Okay, so walk me through what's happening here. So we're building a URL. I understand that part. And this looks like the Astro stuff.
Right. So instead of using one of the off-the-shelf loaders like Glob or File, we're creating our own loader here. So a loader can have a name so that if you have an integration that wants to add a loader for you, it's totally ready for that. So we're inviting the community to go build these things. But we're just creating one here called YouTube Loader. And it still has a schema, same as before. And we implemented load ourselves. So this is going to get called whenever a build is kicked off or your dev server starts. And you can do anything you want inside of here. As long as you use that store object to write values, all of those will appear inside of the collection that you have set up. So a store is really simple. It just has like a getter, a setter, and also some stuff to like look at the values or other things. If you've ever used like a map or just a basic object, it's that. It's just a place to store things. So you can also have caching and other niceties when you do future builds.
Got it. Okay.
And this is where we're actually fetching stuff. So you saw up there, it was like walking through the pages because the playlist might have more than 50 entries or something like that. That's the maximum page limit on YouTube. So I'm just walking through and putting them all in here naively because if it's a playlist, it's controlled. You know how many things there are probably. And I put a little warning there if something is like really unexpected, but it doesn't air. Not super important. And then down here is where it's going to fetch from YouTube. It's going to walk through the items, and then we're going to write it to the content collections API. So parse data is going to just parse the schema. So it's going to take what came from YouTube, put it through your schema that you have set up, and then it's going to store it. So that way it's cached and ready to go. And you might be wondering, like, why can't you just return the data? What's a store? Why is there a store? What is happening? Well, the nice thing about a store is you can choose when it updates. So for example, if I wanted to get a little more clever and say, I only want this to update every like week because I only upload once a week, then you could set that up in here and store a little metadata property with when it last updated. So if I make a ton of changes to my website, like over and over and over again, it's not going to fetch YouTube on every build. It's only going to fetch YouTube once a week as I'm working on my project. And your dev server, it's only going to run on startup. And then while you're working, it's cached the whole time.
Now, is that something that I like, is that just, I pass that into store or is it like that sort of a userland implementation?
Yeah, that'll be userland. There's documentation on how to build your own loader. And it is pretty low level. I expect it to get friendlier if we see a lot of people building their own setups. But there is a documentation guide on how to do meta properties. I think it's like meta is one of the properties that comes into load. And you can say like meta.set date.now. And then you can check against it the next time load runs and say if date.now is greater than 1 week, just no op and don't do anything. So you have total control. Because we also know there's a ton of triggers that could happen. Like maybe you have a webhook and you only wanted to rebuild if the webhook happened to be called. And that was what triggered the build. That's something else that you can do. So if you have a CMS and you're like constantly making changes on your website, it shouldn't have to re-download all the CMS stuff. It should only update the CMS stuff when the CMS webhook has triggered. So those granular things are possible, but you set it up.
Cool. Okay. And so just looking down here, like we're looping over, we're setting stuff, and then down at the bottom, this is object schemas, basically, just making sure that what comes back from YouTube is fulfilling the pieces that we need to actually, use this.
Yep, totally. And down there, I'm doing like a transform just to make it look nice for our app. So YouTube has this nested snippet. It's weird, but this is usable.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the things that I should take more advantage of, where you have like a gnarly, some kind of gnarly API response. And what I would do is just like define the parts of the schema that I want and just know that it's going to be terrible, when you can just put it all at the top level of an object of what you actually use.
Yeah, it is definitely nice to do that.
Great. Okay. So now that we have this loader, we're exporting something called YouTube loader. And so if I can make some inferences here, what I do next is I would set up my YouTube collection. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to have a schema. And does that schema get exported from the loader you just sent me?
Right. So there's a little nicety here where you can just say loader, YouTube loader, and the schema part will just be inferred because we provided.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So that way, if you're like using a plugin from the community, it's a little nicer.
Okay. So I did something wrong.
Oh, just call it YouTube loader function. Yeah. I could have just returned the loader, but yeah, whatever. Okay.
So now we have YouTube.
We have YouTube.
Okay.
I think.
So let's do like the hello world of all this, which would be to const YouTube equals await get collection, and it should autocomplete for me. And it's not for reasons that I don't understand, but that's fine.
Did you add it to your export const collection in the config? Oh, you did.
I'm missing something's not saved. What did I not save?
Yeah, something is unsaved.
Can
you tell me?
Save all files.
Okay.
I don't know.
Perhaps.
I don't know what it was. So then back out here, we have awaited the collection, and then I can just like, this is what I always do, and this is absolutely
JSON stringify null 2.
Indeed.
Classic.
What did I call this? YouTube? YouTube null 2. Now, show me the stuff.
I think it's on the home page. Heck.
Okay. I screwed something up, and that thing that I screwed up does not exist or is empty, which means I'm missing a piece here somewhere.
Okay, so we have YouTube right there. Should
I just turn it off and on again and see if maybe...
Turn it off and on again. Collection YouTube does not...
So something maybe I saved things out of order and tricked it. But.
No, that's good to know. I do know that some of the live updates are like it's caching too much and it should update when the config file changes. So, all right, cool. Beta software.
But here we go. Like we've got a bunch of, this is a YouTube playlist that you put together.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. I see what this is. Yeah. All right. So we've got everything that we need here. And this is so much nicer than the typical YouTube output, which is...
Oh, for sure.
So what, how do we want to use this? How do you want to do it?
Yeah, I actually wanted to get a little fancy and let us reference YouTube videos from an announcement post and then display all the videos related to an announcement.
I don't know why, but when you just said that, what came into my heart was like a very proper, like, let us reference YouTube.
Are you not entertained?
So I want to do that. And like the way that I have done this in the past is I'll just show you is I would say like video, and it would be a z.string, which I would make the YouTube video ID, and I have, then I'm doing full, I don't know, a iframe from YouTube or some kind of chaotic thing. I have no metadata. I'm just throwing the YouTube embed up on the screen. So if I want to improve this and make this, I want this to be one of these, how do?
Yes. You replace Z-string with reference videos. And that's it. So reference function. Real? Yeah. That guy, and then videos as a string. Or
YouTube, since we called it YouTube.
Exactly.
Okay. And so now this is going to yell at me. But I can come back here.
And you could make it optional, but that's
it. But why would we do that? So I'm just going to toss one of these on each one. I'm making an inference that this is the YouTube ID.
That's the one.
Okay. Let me save that, get in here. Okay. And so now it matches, and when I come out here and we go to whiteboard touchscreen, it fails.
Is that the right route? Do you have a typo?
Did I get it wrong?
The collection announcements does not exist. What have we done?
What have we done indeed?
Interesting. I have not seen that.
I don't know. So my VS Code instance is cursed.
Maybe.
Like, I have, over the course of, because this computer is probably 4 years old at this point, and I have installed literally everything on it. So I'm probably running like 25, 30 extensions in VS Code. I am sure that my VS Code does unpredictable things that others don't. However, that being said, I don't know why that happened.
We will look into that, I think. Because yeah, it was there and then something messed up when the error was resolved. So I'm wondering if like you trigger an error and then it reloads, something doesn't get reset. I don't know. I was going to say only 25? I have like 50. I don't know what you're doing.
I mean, I'm actively resistant to extensions and I still have that many installed. I hate stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like stuff, Ben.
I know.
Like,
I switched to
want
Z
less stuff.
and I have 5. And my life is beautiful.
I've been, I like that's the other thing. I drove Adam into the ground. Like I made him end of life it before I switched off.
I love that.
Okay. So we theoretically then we have our video. So if I wanted to just like show some details about it, I can go to announcement data.video. And then is there stuff in here? There's stuff in here.
Yes. However, because of efficiency reasons, and it might be cool to change this, there's like an extra function to call to like fetch all the related data, but it's very easy.
Okay.
It's very easy. You're not having to do like a full fetch with 0 type safety or something like that. Let me try typing it myself. If I do this. And I assumed you would use an array. I'm a fool. Okay. So if I do video entry announcement data video, that should get the video. And there it is.
Indeed it does. Okay.
Cool. Oh, and you can see my hover hint. Love that. So yeah, there it is. And it'll error if you're referencing a video that doesn't exist. So you don't have to think about any of those things. But yeah, now, I don't know, whatever you want to do with the video. For now, we can...
So we just parse this out to plain old video.
Yes,
and I could get data dot snippet dot title.
Yeah.
Don't you
interesting.
lie to me.
That's the wrong inferred type, I think, because that's like the YouTube type. Oh my God, is it typing it based on the input? Why did mine not do that? I tried this earlier. Interesting.
This is my superpower. Is I'm
What
going
did
to
we
find.
do wrong?
I'm going to find something weird.
You found a very weird thing because we know that title is a top level thing because that's the schema we used. I wonder if when I changed it to be a schema on the inside, it doesn't work anymore. Let's find out. So
if I
types
save
are
this,
actually
though-
bad, but now wait. Yes, that's the title.
So
right
that
there.
worked. Yeah.
It worked, but our type inference, I think, is taking the input when it should be looking at the transform version. And that is a quick change on the internals.
Okay.
Matt Kane, you're watching. You told me you'd watch. Go fix it
Matt
right
Kane.
now.
Yeah,
Making
it
me
should
look
be
bad.
fixed. Did you fix it already? Is beta 2 out yet?
Where is it?
I mean, this is great though. So we have our video schema is being pulled out, and it's just missing the transform.
Yes, it's inferring the input type and not the output.
Got
assuming
it.
that's
Got it.
But it has all these fields. So if you wanted to like put an
Right.
iframe or something, you could do that. If you wanted to show the thumbnail and make it like a link, you could do that too.
Got it. So this is our embed URL. Why don't we just do that real quick to show the power of data? And if I remember correctly, is it just a straight up like iframe? Is it source or href in an iframe?
Source.
And then we would put in the YouTube data dot
Yeah, we keep changing names.
I am
Yeah.
doing this. Yeah, this is my fault. Embed URL, was it capital?
That's
like
the
that?
one, yeah.
Okay. And do we need other things for that to work, or is that gonna?
I think it'll work.
Look at it go!
Wow.
Look at us. So, I mean, this is. You can just see like the gears are turning for me on how quickly I would be able to just kind of clean up some of the things that I've had to do where, like you said, I'd have multiple things. I've got like weak references where I'm putting in an ID, but it's just text, and then I have to take that. There's no way for me to validate that it actually exists. So that's actually a great question. What if it doesn't? And I'm just gonna add some junk to the end. Reference to it is invalid. Beautiful. This is great. This is exactly what I've always wanted. Is just like I don't want to have to do a full-blown database, but I also want some of the benefits of like joins in a database.
Exactly. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I mean, I love this. This is great.
Yeah, I'll actually say that's where AstroDB kind of came out of, or some of our thoughts there, because I was building references at an offsite. It's actually been in content collections for a long time. And Erica, who works on language tools and other things, she said, if you're going to do references, I also want like sort ascending. I also want these other SQLite features. And then we started thinking, what if content was a database? What if all these things worked? We're not quite there on the vision, but there's definitely dreams of like, what if the content store is actually like a SQLite database that's storing all this stuff? Can we make it faster? Can we give you even more features than references? Because as soon as you start thinking of things in like at least a Prisma database, like a friendly one, where you could just say like post references videos, and a post has an array of videos. Like that's just nice to work with. I don't want to say join and then do a reduce to turn the join object into like a nested array. I want to just feel like I'm working with objects. And that's mostly what you're getting here.
Yeah, and it does feel pretty nice. I think and like the things that are from my perspective, like I guess my wish list would be that the data just expanded the way that I would expect it to. And then maybe like Astro just has some parser magic under the hood to know that if it's not used, don't bother including it. Or like, any of that kind of stuff. But then there's a couple questions in chat, and chat, now's your opportunity. You have roughly 15 minutes to ask questions if you got them. First one is, can loaders be chained?
What does that mean?
I feel like the answer is yes, in the sense that we're doing references, right? So we can load things. I guess maybe the other way that I could interpret that is, can you have a loader that brings in something, and then based on that information, you loaded additional things? So for example, if I was loading sanity data and the sanity data had YouTube references, could I load my YouTube playlist based on the sanity data, like have one loader run before the next one to get in the related data?
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, that definitely means you got to like control which loaders run first. And I don't know if we guarantee it, but I know that store object we were looking at, that YouTube loader, it has a store, and you can also call .get on that store. I don't think you can get other collections, but if you could, that would be a way like from a loader to go to the store and check if another collection's already there or something like that.
And I guess the way that I would approach that, if it was me today, if the data was fully dependent, I would consider that to be like one piece of data. So I would probably run the load here and then use whatever I loaded to then just kick off another loop and then throw whatever the result of that is into the store as my, like my custom data loader. So there's definitely a userland way to do it. I don't know. It looks like probably like API wise, probably wouldn't make sense just yet, but definitely ways to work around that if that is a need that you have. I would maybe also encourage anybody who starts thinking in those directions to try to think about how you could decouple those pieces so that you don't have lots and lots of dependent data, because that's how you end up with waterfalls. And this was one of the things that made Gatsby very unwieldy to use, was like having to put things in order like that. So if you don't have to, don't.
Yeah. That's again, it's why we make soft steps towards the API you're looking for. And if things are missing, it's probably intended. Or we just said, we're not going to implement 10 things. We're going to implement 2. And if enough people ask for 3, maybe we walk towards 3. So
right.
I see what you're saying there. There's definitely some pros and cons. I'm just like live thinking, what if things are interdependent and what would that look like? But yeah, I agree, especially because store.set can be called like as you're walking through things, you can like set new data as soon as it's discovered. Like you don't have to return one big array and write a magic map reduce or whatever to make one big array in memory. Like here, I'm just setting in the store every time I walk through a new page. So walk through 50, store it. Walk through 50, store it. I don't have a big items array with thousands of entries. I'm just offloading it as soon as I have access. So that would probably be a way to deal with interdependent stuff because they can be as nested as you want. You can go crazy with it. It's a document.
Right. And is this running on the server side? So to put a finer point on this, is this being rendered like at request time, or is this being built once and then stored for the Astro site to reference?
Right. Right now it is build time with a cache. So everything runs in build, whether you're pre-rendering or not. And you can invalidate it using those caching strategies I was talking about, like storing the date. So you can say, if it's a week old, let's go ahead and refresh this cache of data. And that gets triggered anytime you build the site. So you might have like a webhook trigger a build. The build checks the cache and it invalidates the cache if it needs to. That would be like the full flow. So you're not rebuilding your whole website. You're only rebuilding like parts of the cache that changed. And that's really good for content. We have run into issues with like server rendered e-commerce sites where like I have a product catalog, it changes every 5 minutes, different stocks, different other things. And if you're in that group, you can't really use a content loader because you're probably not going to just rebuild and statically render an e-commerce site every single time. Right. So we have talked about like runtime content loaders. We just haven't shaped the vision yet. We've been thinking in terms of static right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those things that starts to feel like, why would you build it when something like tan stack query exists as far as a runtime loader? And, but I think that's also something that I've seen Astro do well is like you just imported Zod instead of building your own schema checker, and you use Drizzle for Astro DB instead of building your own ORM. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for whatever the right solution is may already be built, and maybe Astro just needs to give us a opinion on how to do it. Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited about this. I think the sleeper hit of this is the YouTube, like the environment variables. What a sleeper hit. What a killer addition. There was a question about that I didn't ask earlier, which was in the Astro config. Somebody asked, what if you forget the context? And we get our answer immediately. You are not allowed to forget the context.
Yeah, you got to know where it's going. Pretty good choice, I think.
All right. So I'm going to put out one more call for questions for anybody who's got it. Ben, did we get to everything you wanted to cover today?
That was everything I wanted to do. Yeah.
Excellent. So where should people go if they want to learn more and get involved?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to learn more, you were talking about the 5.0 blog post. That's a good showcase of all the things we talked about. So content layer is super detailed in there. We call out some of the community loaders. You were hinting at a few. The ones I know about are WordPress engine. So there was an agency that like rebuilt their whole stack from WordPress to Astro, and loaders came at the perfect time for them. And they just built a WordPress engine loader, which like, thank you. That's amazing. Awesome. Notion, that's another community one, really cool. It connects to Notion databases. So if you have like a table of entries, you can convert that to like,
oh my God,
content, which is
Ben,
like,
you just changed my whole life. Like
I was trying to get it working. I was like too ambitious, but
I link to so many Notion pages because I can't be bothered to like write the handling to get Notion data into an Astro site. But if you have solved that for me, everything's about to change. Server islands go stable. I was playing with those. These are great. I think we had talked about maybe trying to get here and we didn't quite get here, but that's okay. Should we talk about these for like a hot second just to give everybody an idea?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, server islands, it's annoying that the code showcase is so simple, but it is. It's just like a little directive, and you can put it on any Astro component, and that'll just turn an Astro render into like a fetch call for that Astro component. So if you had like a statically rendered shop page and it has all the information about a product, but you have the user's cart or maybe a profile login if there's need for that, you could just put that little part of your Astro site in a server island. And while everything else is pre-rendered, just that little part is going to be server rendered on request time. So we smartly take your component, turn it into an endpoint, and it fetches it.
And from a like practical outcomes, this is in my opinion, simpler way of handling what the RSC or the React Server Components flow is trying to solve, which is we have like the majority of the site is not dynamic. You know, like you said, you've got your homepage. The only thing that's dynamic on the homepage is your little user icon. Like the one I like to think about is Google. Well, not that Google, this Google.
Well, that's pretty
here, right? None of this is really dynamic. Like they could rebuild this once a day with their new Google Doodle, except for this part here, my little user thing. So if I can make this part server defer, then all of this is cacheable. They can serve exactly the same thing to every single user and then asynchronously render this. And I get kind of the best of both worlds here. I get a personalized page and I don't have to wait for the server to build all of these pieces despite the fact that they've never changed.
Exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be static stuff either. Like it's kind of just a way to choose caching strategies a little more granular. So instead of saying all of Google needs to be dynamic with no cache, you could say the homepage is cached for one day, or it's cached with like ISR on Vercel because I'm fancy. And then this one little corner is cached once a week or never, or whatever you want to do. So instead of having a global cache header, you have component level cache headers. And that's super powerful as soon as you're trying to like figure out, why is my Lambda so expensive? Oh, we're re-rendering this stuff every time. Let's go ahead and be more granular and choose where the cache headers go.
And I do think that's one of those things that is it's like, this is a problem that you solve when you have this problem, right? Like I found in the vast majority of cases, I don't even have good reasons to use server islands or, you know, React Server Components, any of that stuff. I kind of find in most of the projects I work on, I find that being a solution in want of a problem. It's an issue that you hit when you hit it. And when you hit it, it hits really hard, but make sure you have it before you start adding a lot of custom, because like when you add custom caching headers, you just added a layer of pain to your life, right? Because now it's a thing you have to know, you have to manage, you have to remember, you have to train the rest of the team on to not accidentally break your site. So, you know, just like choose your pain judiciously, I guess. There were a couple questions about the loader, so I've linked to this thread, but it looks like there's Storyblock, we got Cloudinary, HighGraph, Notion, Astro Feed Loader. So, RSS. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Is there a link to the WP Engine one?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's public yet. I just had like a one-on-one with their team, and I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Okay.
And they're working on it. So
people should follow you then, and you can share it when it's ready.
I will be live. That's a good plug. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Can a server island accept props?
Yes, it can. And they are encrypted with a build key. So if you have any props that are being passed like from the server in, it can contain, I mean, always be careful if you're passing down like specific user IDs or environments. Use AstroEnv in order to do it properly. Or make sure you're doing an auth check in your server island as well, so people can't just ping the server island with no authentication, render anything. You need to think about it like it's a separate endpoint, because it is. But with that, you can pass encrypted props, you can check whatever you want, and it works.
Excellent. All right, so that is our time. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to say if you've got more questions, make sure you go follow Ben, get into the Astro Discord. If you get on the Astro site, up here at the top, you'll see there's a link to the Discord. Jump in there. It's super active, super helpful. Definitely a good place to hang out if you are using or learning Astro. And also, you can get into my Discord if you want. There's fun stuff going on in there. Lots of helpful people. I do a lot of Astro stuff, so happy to talk to y'all about it. This episode, like every episode, has been sponsored by Netlify and Live Caption. We've had Diane here from White Coat Captioning all day. Thank you, Diane. We've also been pair programming today using Tuple, so thank you, Tuple, for sponsoring this and making the pair programming experience just a little bit better. Make sure you go and follow Ben. Make sure you go check out Astro, and make sure that you go and check out the schedule on the site, because we've got a whole lot of really good stuff coming up on the show. It's going to be just a jam-packed month. So many good things coming on. Might even have some surprise appearances on my Tuesday streams. I know I was talking to Matt Kane about maybe coming on. He said he had some hot takes about content layers, and I didn't have any Thursdays open, but I'm always down to listen to Matt Kane be very Britishly salty.
It's been great.
So, all right, y'all, that is it from us today. Ben, any parting words for everyone before we wrap this one up?
I never know what to say. Keep whiteboarding, keep coding, try Astro, and follow me on Twitter.
Love it. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time.